Hey everybody, welcome to Symposium episode number 5. That's pretty impressive. We had more viewers in episode 4 than episode 3, so we're trending in the right direction. So if you're out there, thanks for watching this. Make sure you remember to share it with some of your friends. We've got a great episode ahead for you. As you can see, the full gang is here. Justin, Matt, Sam, and I am your host for the day, Austin. We're talking AI as usual to start the show off, and a copyright battle that's been underway and I imagine will continue to be underway for quite some time. We give some kudos to Matthew for his role in lowering egg prices. It's been truly remarkable to see what's happened since his viral rant. So we're going to get into that, and then we'll also have a couple other fun stories on semiconductors, and then the burrito buy now pay later complex that is taking over the world here in the news cycle lately, and we'll debate the ethics of that, and even hear from Justin that he kind of doesn't feel like poor people should be able to own burritos. So anyway, stick with us, and it's going to be a good one. So thanks for listening.
It's all right. You need to heal on every podcast so people come and listen out of spite.
Talking since the 5th grade, and somehow we've got more to say. Beat kicks and faster rhythm. Inflation's high, the game's too steep. Stream wars rage while we lose sleep. Big tech's wild, the Fed's a mess, but let's start a party, I guess. Symposium, where tangents thrive. Old friends talking, the takes collide. Symposium, no wrong or right, just good conversation deep into the night. Yeah, we're still talking.
So I started reading a book called Shoe Dog. You've probably read it, maybe, but it's about Phil Knight, guy who founded Nike or started Nike, and it's his memoir or whatever you want to call it. I guess memoir. And he's going through every year since 1963, like right after he was out of college, and like writing a chapter about all of these years and about what he did and everything. And I was like, how is he remembering all of that stuff from so long ago? And like, I started thinking, shoot, when I go to write my memoir, because obviously I'll write a memoir, I assume, I was like, do I need to start like writing annual recaps of my life just so that I have the documentation ready for my memoir? And then I came to the conclusion, I can just look through my camera roll and I'll know exactly what I did.
That's as long as you have access to your camera roll. Technically, you don't own any of those photos on your camera.
I'm paying Apple to access my own memories.
Is that true? You don't own those?
Well,
is that true?
If you downloaded it onto your phone, I think you would have them. But if it's just stored in the cloud, then you'd lose access if you...
You own whatever's on the local memory of your device.
You've got to have a copyright. Isn't there like a copyright instantly created when you take a photograph of something, like it's a piece of art?
I'm sure that they can't do... I'm sure that there's some rule that they're not allowed to go like use.
I guess I'm getting a little bit confused with things like Steam, right, where you can buy video games, because you technically, it's a bad thing, well, not a bad thing, but you just own the license to play the game, basically.
Right.
So in theory, if Steam goes down and never comes back up, you've lost however much money you've just put in, compared to the old days where you did have a CD-ROM, where you had I had a game that had 6 CDs for the install, and it was probably a 10 gigabyte game. It wasn't even that big, but 6 CDs. Install 1, install 2, just
I've
hilarious.
been watching Scrubs. I'd never seen Scrubs before, so I just started... Well, I'm almost done with it, actually. But, so then I started scrolling on of course, there's a Reddit page for Scrubs. So I was like, I'll hop in there, see what people are saying about the show. And apparently, all of the music or at least most of the music that is in the show on the streaming platform that I listen to, that's in the show, they've had to add because they lost the rights to the original songs that they had on it. It's a lot of like 90s and 2000 songs that you guys know. I personally thought like, oh, these songs are good. But then when I was on the Reddit, people were like, if you buy the DVD version of the Blu-ray, it's way better because they're different songs. Because Peacock doesn't have the right to play those songs from the original show.
That's wild.
And so they had to pipe in the ones that they do have the rights to. I was like, that's crazy. I mean, songs play like a key role in like development of your viewing.
When you mentioned Scrubs, I was gonna say it has a great soundtrack. Like that almost, like I almost said that, and that's what I remember. It did.
Did you watch it on TV?
Awesome music. I wonder what they have in it
service?
now. Is it still good?
Okay, yeah. Well, I was gonna say I've watched it on the streaming service, and I've liked all the music. I was like, oh, the songs are great in this, but apparently they're different than what they had when they were live. So I found that like a very interesting wrinkle. Now I kind of want to go and like buy them on DVD and watch them, but I don't think I have anything I could.
They're altering the history. It's crazy. I guess Disney does that with their movies anyway on Disney Plus. But another story that came up today: 23andMe, the DNA service, filed for bankruptcy today. And so now the question is, what happens to all of the their only asset basically is all of this DNA that they've collected from people. And so it's going to be interesting to see like who are they going to sell that to, who's going to buy it, and then you can go on there apparently and like request that they get rid of your DNA.
I did that today.
Purge
all
it.
right, there you go. But that it's just so interesting now. It's like you like think that this company is going to have your.
How do you think they get rid of it?
DNA.
How do you think they get rid of it?
Is the asset of a business.
They don't.
I mean, it's just a DNA. It's just, well, I assume it is just a digital record at this point.
They were actually storing my sample still from like
really
10 years ago. Yeah.
How'd you find that out? Did you
I had an option to request that they destroy the sample? It said that it's been stored.
That's wild. Did it cost you more to do that?
That would have been a funny FU to everybody on the way out. Hey, we're going out. But if you want to destroy your sample, $10, please.
Yeah. Well, that was the there was a joke on somebody said on Twitter, like, great business model idea. Start DNA company, collect everyone's DNA, file for bankruptcy, charge $1,000 to delete the data. Yeah, you're back in the black.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I wonder how they get rid of it. They like burn it in a dumpster fire out back, like drop it in a vat of acid, like are they just dumping it in the trash and then some guy at dumpster diving is gonna have all these swabs like, hey, these look interesting.
That's interesting though, because if Austin's right and it has digitized everything, I mean that swab you don't need the swab anymore at all. So I guess it's a backup if you somehow lose your digital assets, but that's in theory you're never going to lose your digital assets. So you're on the internet forever, Stan.
How did they digitize that, do you think? They just
Makes
take
sense.
the code sequence of the DNA and just like type that in? But like, can they recreate that though?
Yeah, they can sequence it like
Using the digital version? From what DNA, like where are they pulling that from? Because they don't have your DNA anymore. So they
I mean, all DNA
turn
they
the
take some sort of
DNA into
carbon
numbers.
and just mold it into, yes, like for having my, like, sure, they might have
Could they
my DNA
recreate
sequence,
your
but could they
DNA?
clone me, you know, by just having the digital version?
They've got CRISPR. Using CRISPR, I bet they could. They just take some like banana DNA and then
So they could just
edit
take
it to
another-
be exactly the same as yours.
Yeah, I mean, this is the science lessons. Matthew, what do you remember the letters? G's, no,
GC. Hey,
something like that. I know what guanine or some, I don't know.
yeah, guanine,
It's been a while since I did.
thiamine, adenine, and what's the C?
Is this like the order of the DNA sequence?
But you just
Yeah, there's only 4, like, what do they call amino acids that build up the building blocks of
for some
DNA?
reason that doesn't sound right. But polypeptide or yeah, I don't know, maybe amino acid. But there's only 4, Matt. So all the only thing that separates you and me is the order.
Okay, so
Right.
they could,
In theory, if you can make
so they
those,
could
you can
take
make anything.
Sam's swab that he has, and then they could look and say, oh, Matt's DNA sequence is this, and they could just move his around and make me.
I bet they would
I
do
don't
it.
think they figured that out yet, but
Probably
yes,
not out of
that's
my
in theory.
DNA, but probably just
Who's
the
to
raw
say?
building blocks.
We should have a section on CRISPR, though, Austin. That technology is pretty crazy in its potential future use, I mean, has a lot of upsides.
I've been trying to learn more about stem cell research lately, and like in the realm of longevity and anti-aging, and there's a lot of wild stuff happening. So I agree.
I've got a listener base that would love to hear some of your research on anti-aging.
You could get that one guy who's trying to live forever to come on the podcast. Is that his name?
Brian Johnson.
6-year-old.
Yeah,
that's
my
the guy
brother.
who got his son's
He's got a blood boy.
Yeah, he got a transplant of his son's blood.
Well, I read that headline.
I was like, it's like an oil change. You know, like this is what we're gonna do. We're just gonna go in for an oil change, and then every
Have you guys not
couple
seen
years,
Silicon Valley?
and then you're refreshed.
They make fun of that. Remember Gavin Belson as a blood boy?
I have. Do they do that?
Yeah.
Oh,
There's a conspiracy. Have you guys heard of
It's not Brian Johnson. It's Brian Armstrong. I have to correct.
Armstrong? I think it's
No,
called.
not.
Sorry,
Brian
Brian
Johnson.
Johnson.
No,
That's
Brian
a golfer.
Johnson. Brian Armstrong is the CEO of Coinbase. Brian Johnson is the longevity guy.
Brian Armstrong
Maybe he's
probably
a
also
CEO
has a
of
blood boy
major
though.
company. They all have blood boys.
Yeah, Brian spelled Bryan. Brian Johnson.
I was thinking it
Glad
was
we
an
got to the
I.
bottom of that.
Sorry to the listeners.
Austin didn't want to get sued, so he had to get his facts straight.
Brian Armstrong is with an I.
I don't really think Brian with a Y
Okay,
is like
there you
go.
There you
a
have
real
it.
way to spell it. It's not right.
No. You know what's sad? I have Bryan. I have Bryan typed into my X search bar. Second thing that comes down, Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant still.
He's still on X, 14 million followers, and he's got like a picture of him he had a picture of him as a 8-year-old or so as his profile picture.
Now, so I know where these other two guys are, Austin and Matt, were when Kobe died. What about you, Sam? Do you know where you were when Kobe died?
Huh? I was at I think it was the Morris. I was at a play. I was seeing a play. I'm pretty sure it was the Morris.
And phones just started. You saw everybody looking at their phones.
Yep,
Slowly.
Yeah, everybody was looking at their phones. My date at the time got some notification. She said, gave me the news.
We were all together in Chicago.
It might have even been like at the intermission. So people like got out their phones and everybody saw the news that had broken at the same time.
We were in a donut shop in Chicago right across from Wrigley.
And shout out to teams TMZ. Like, to break that story first, whoever did that for them probably got a fat bonus that year. That is a crazy
We didn't think it
story
was
to
real.
be the first
We
one to
tried to-
break. Yeah, we didn't think it was real because it was Team Z.
They were messing with me saying, because I'm I don't know if Sam knows this, but I was a huge Kobe idolizer. And so they were saying like, Austin, Kobe died. Ha 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 ha. Turns out it was real.
Did you have a hard time accepting?
I did. I had a really hard time accepting it. Man, I also remember where I was when he played his last game, sitting on my freshman year dorm room couch. He scored like 60 points. His last tweet, if you're wondering, continuing to move the game forward at King James. Much respect to my brother. And then a little arm.
Tragic.
Flex.
Tragic last tweet.
Hashtag 33644.
Those are angel numbers.
I think they were points. King James up to like 50,000 points now, I think, right?
He has the most ever now. He has for the last year. He's going to blow it out of the water.
No, the legend passed 50,000 March 4th, 2025. Just happened. Okay. Well, we can get into the docket. All right. Let's start off with an AI story because that's the most requested topic that people have. That was sarcastic. My listeners say you guys talk too much about AI.
Your listener base?
Yeah.
Are they still demanding the volume be turned down on the AI?
But our futurist demands
It's all
it.
cut back on less AI, more Trump. That's what the people want. So, our friend of the program, Sam Altman, said that there was this article. I guess it's kind of 2 weeks old or so, a week and a half old. OpenAI declares AI race over if training on copyrighted works isn't deemed fair use. Basically saying, he says here, national security hinges on unfettered access to AI training data. So the story here basically is that the reason why all these AI models have been able to work so well is they essentially scraped the internet and all of its contents and fed that into their models to generate what we now have and what we know as something like ChatGPT. So it knows all of this because it was able to use the, I'll say, open web to go gather data. Just like I don't want to start I don't want to be impartial here in my setup, but the way to think about it would be if you had a researcher and you said, go research everything about, I don't know, Christianity. You send your researcher off, he comes back and sort of has distilled now all of the information that he or she learned about Christianity into a model. And then you could go ask that researcher anytime a question about Jesus, and he or she would have the answer. Just do that times a billion, and you got essentially how all of these AI companies were able to kind of build their models that now work. So the big question is, they did all this by taking a lot of text, pictures, and video that exists on the internet and used all of that as their training data. So OpenAI doesn't actually own any data themselves. They don't really produce any data. What they did was they went and studied the web and then built this model. So now there's a lot of lawsuits happening. New York Times has a big one. And basically we're now going to litigate this question of whether all of that data on the internet is fair use and free for anyone to go scrape and use to power their AI model that now a lot of AI companies are obviously profiting off of. So we can open up the floor. Who wants to start and maybe give us your take on where you stand with, should this be fair use or should it not be?
Well, so I'm going to use a very basic example of what I was taught in grade school, right? You are writing a history fair, because I'm the history guy. History fair, 5th grade, and I'm writing about the Cuban Missile Crisis. All right, I write something down, Russia or Cuba has 30 missiles. I have to put a source after that because I, as a, how old was I? Probably 12 or 13. I had no idea that was the truth. So I would have to have a source down. If not, is it plagiarizing at that point? I don't even know. I guess that's stealing or plagiarizing. But, putting a source down allows you to basically say whatever the facts were. Does this not just completely invalidate that idea? If you're OpenAI, you're essentially taking that information, saying it is your own, now that your AI bot is able to feed information. Granted, I guess I was thinking on the fly, I just thought about this. Doesn't the response give the sources it pulls from?
In a lot of cases, it is now. Yeah, in a lot of cases, it is.
So maybe I wonder where the lawsuit's going to go, because I guess I'm just literally thinking about this on the fly. Yes, you're scraping everything. Essentially, it's just a human reading. If at the end you provide your sources, are you not participating in what any human could do if they had an unlimited brain capacity and just be able to read everything? So literally at the beginning of my response, I was going to say this is unfair. But then by the end of my response, I'm saying I think they're doing it correctly. Whoa, that was a quick turnaround, guys. This is what the people come for.
This is what they come for.
I'm just thinking a little deeper here. And then it doesn't take much sometimes. But if they don't provide a source, then it is kind of saying, what are we doing here? Everything on the internet is now fair game for me to put down on my history research paper with no sources, I
think, well, Sam, you want to go or you want me to go? I think
go ahead.
It will come down to how they're profiting off of this copyrighted material, right? So, I mean, if you look at from like Google, now that like when you type something into Google and it gives you their AI response when you ask it something, it does kind of like what Justin was saying, where it'll give you this information, but it's basically just summarizing everything that's scraped on the internet, and then we'll give you a bunch of sources that you can pull it from and like where it basically came up with that summary from. So I'd say that's, and I mean, they're not really profiting off that. The way they're profiting is by like selling advertisements. They're not really selling the AI. So I'm not really sure if that's where you're Google. Like,
who's Google, not selling the AI?
Like Google in that instance, when they're providing that, are they really selling? You're not paying to use that resource. The way they're making money.
Well, I am not. Well, for the like, if you're thinking of just like AI only being like the AI response at the top of the Google feed, that would be one thing. But for every other AI thing that I'm paying for, I am paying the company for the ability to use their model.
The response on the top of the page is interesting, though, because Matthew, let's flip it a little bit. Yes, maybe Google's not making money besides you using their search engine, but they're taking away your page views for those individuals that would have gone to that page if that summary wasn't there. So that's kind of an interesting lawsuit, I guess you could think, in the making of now you're taking everyone away from actually going to my page, clicking those ads, and, I'm losing money now from your AI summary. Now
but that's more
kind
of
of
like
interesting.
a monopoly lawsuit on like access to, on like where you go to access something. You're going through their search engine. Do they have a monopolistic power? That's a whole nother topic, but I agree. That's interesting. But okay, so let me move away from the Google example because theirs is a little bit different than you paying for OpenAI or paying for any of the other ones where they're basically generating new content. Those, I would argue, if I had to pick a side, I would side with the people who feel like their stuff is being stolen because they never licensed it to them. But honestly, I just think it's going to end up it's going to come down to the decision of the litigators, like of the judges, because it's almost like it is a completely new, almost, I almost want to call it a species. It's almost like if I were to say, look at 1,000,000 paintings from Van Gogh and then paint my own painting that looks a lot like Van Gogh's work, no one would ever sue me and say you copyrighted Van Gogh's work, or that's copyright infringement, or like you stole his work, because I just used my brain, used it as an influence, and then made something new, which is essentially what these AIs are doing. But human beings physically can never digest that much data and compute at the speeds at which an AI can. And so it's almost not a tool, it's almost as if it's its own entity, but you can use it to make money on it. And so I feel like it's almost just going to have to be at the judges if they're like, is this, it almost enters a new foray of of copyright law. It's like, are we going to allow a tool that's so useful that's almost not even a tool to just use everybody's copyrighted material to make its own? I don't know if I really I don't know if I can pick a side, because I don't think there's no precedent for it. It's an unprecedented issue when it comes to copyright. They've never had to deal with a tool so powerful that it's kind of its own brain that's basically mimicking what humans can do, but at like 1 billion times faster, more powerful. You guys disagree that it's almost going to have to be like a judge is going to have to make a decision on where this lands? Like, is this even going to go to the Supreme Court? Going to be that big of a deal?
I mean, my thoughts go like, what are you going to do? Like, the cat's out of the bag at this point. So if a judge says you can't use Agatha Christie's novels to train your data, like, the model is already, like, it's already out there. It's too late. So you're, I guess, talking about going forward, how we're going to change things. But so, I guess I'm with you there, Matt. Like, I don't really stand, one way or the other on it, and it probably will come down to a legal decision. But I don't know. I've got a different idea that I think could address the situation. Have you guys ever heard of copyleft?
No.
So there's copyright and there's copyleft. And copyleft is a kind of license that I can make something and it's open source, free for everybody. But the only rule is if you use it, you have to embed the same rights that I gave you in whatever you used it for. So if I decide my thing is free and you use my thing, then whatever you use my thing for also must be free. So I think in that way, it sort of in perpetuity keeps it so that it's open, the access to it is open and free, and all of your rights are reserved sort of in spirit. Like, every time it's copied, your rights are then still copied with it, which is different from copyright, which actually restricts copying and remixing of things, which I think is why this is a legal issue, because these AI models have used copies of copywritten material and remixed it into AI-generated responses that sound just like Agatha Christie. And that's why there's some copyright infringement question, but I just think it's so hard to prove and to chase down and to restrict, because that information is on the internet. So are you going to take it off of the internet and then be behind paywalls, and still there's going to be ways to get around it? So I think the enforceability of it is like basically nil. But having this copyleft system in place, I think would then ensure that if you're using free information on the internet, like it's out there, go grab it, fine. But whatever you're producing has also got to be a part of that space. It's also got to be free and allowed for other people to use and remix as well.
What about stuff that is behind a paywall, like the New York Times? Like assume all their stuff's already been ingested, but going forward, every new article, how should those be handled?
Like how would it be profited from? I think is that what you're asking?
Well, their argument's going to be that our stuff is behind a paywall, and so people have to pay to come read the article, but OpenAI can just create a New York Times license and then have go scrape the whole site every day and
that to me just seems like you're not going to be able to stop that. Like that information is out there and it's going to be gobbled up, and to prove like where an AI got its information from and how it was used, and if that particular piece of information was used to generate this particular response that generated revenue, like, do you have any claim to that? Like, I think that's just so muddied that it's, even though I think there's an argument to be made, like if there's a paywall and then you have to pay for something, then OpenAI shouldn't be able to just steal that information. But because of the way things are, like, I don't think you can really enforce it. I don't know. That's my opinion on it, I guess.
I mean, I think if that's, yeah, I mean, so I'll say, I think if that's true, then that would mean we've broken the back of the entire internet economy that relies on payment for producing something, potentially. But I'll also say, counterpoint, I think the remedy of what the U.S. courts would do with this is just impose fines against the U.S.-based AI companies, and they're going to make them pay for the information that was proven that they stole, going backwards, and then like going forward, they'll probably have to create some type of like revenue sharing agreement or something between or deals with each other. Like OpenAI has a deal with the Wall Street Journal where you can go like access any you can look up Wall Street Journal articles within OpenAI or on ChatGPT. Like you can give it a link and it'll tell you about the article. But I think the distinction there of what I just said was that's what they'll do to US-based AI companies. They're not going to be able to do the same to any like Chinese-based company. Like what are they going to do? Fine Chinese company for taking American newspaper data or, articles? So then it's like, okay, now are we in a situation where our models are not as strong? How much regulation do we allow essentially US law to hamper down AI advancement? Because if the US comes down hard on AI from this capacity, right, and now hurts a profit margin, their ability to be profitable as an AI company because they're being fined or charged so much to use the data that they then can't be self-sustainable, but then the rest of the world just is able to keep running. That's, I think, kind of a concern I have of like the cat is out of the bag.
There are ways, like fines are not going to work when you're trying to chase down a Chinese company, but let's say the US straight up blocks access to those AI engines, basically. I mean, that's it. And then the US gets a couple other countries on board, UK, Germany, France, and then you block access to that engine from those countries as well. We've seen examples of that, at least.
Yeah, it's called China. That's China's internet.
Well, yeah, no, but I'm saying if China's trying to skirt the system, there are ways to combat it. It's not, they're not gonna be able to get away with it for free, but it's a fair point in terms of you'd have a lot of world cooperation to also stop China from doing the same exact thing.
But it would slow down every like piece of an AI development, because now like China all of a sudden has the leading model, that's the cheapest model. Well, like the DeepSeek API is already half the cost per token of OpenAI. So then now you're building all of your AI infrastructure on top of a higher cost AI system that's potentially less powerful.
I think it's going to come down to a ruling in the court that they're going to then use as precedent for all. Because, like, if a court doesn't come up with the decision on how this is going to be handled, then what stops, like, every musician from buying OpenAI or some AI tool saying, make me a song that sounds like my song, and then suing the company because they can, like, point to specific parts of it, say, hey, they stole this part and I had to pay for this, so they're using my work that's copyrighted to make a profit. Because then it would just be nonstop lawsuits. So I'm sure that's why Sam Altman made this statement. He's going to try to lobby the government in some way, or all AI companies are going to try to lobby the government in some way to say, you can't allow everyone to just sue us all the time for anything that our AI generates, because there'll just be endless lawsuits.
I think I agree with him there. I just think that he then shouldn't be able to be a for-profit company, and his model should be open source. I think and I think that's really the only way that like AI can see its maximal potential globally. If we have to compete and we start locking down our systems and locking down our data, like that's really only hurting the overall industry. And I think to the extent that like any fees would actually make any impact, even for US-based companies, like the regulatory oversight to be able to prove anything, to be able to come forward with one successful case against a company and you sue them like $30 million off of their $100 million revenue per year. Like it's really just a pay-to-play system and a inequipped government. Like I think the regulatory direction is also a losing game, or one that leads more to corruption, really, because then you've got favorite companies and who gets to pocket the extra cash from suing these companies. Like I just think that's a bad direction. And I think competing with China and trying to feel like we're better than them and locking down our data is also bad. So I think we need to find a way to like stay competitive and continue driving like research and advancement in the space, but while not like stealing from people, which I feel like, I don't know. I think this copyleft thing is really the solution.
But there's no money in that. Like you're saying that then there's no value in any like thing that is created. So here's an example, right? Disney is one of the like most stringent copyright holding companies. Like they'll go after everybody. Like that's what they do. They have extreme control over their copyrights. OpenAI will not let you create a picture of Mickey Mouse. They're not messing with Disney. They haven't since the beginning.
Although Mickey Mouse just went, I think it's 70 years past. His copyright just expired. Yeah, like I think in the past year or two.
They're still not messing with him.
Yeah.
But X will do Disney pictures on Grok. They'll create any Disney character you want. And so it's kind of interesting to see like two examples there. But to the point of like this copyleft, where's the value in the character?
Yeah, so I understand the confusion. It's not that it has to be free, although that could be one restriction that you put on it. It's more so that if I am able to sell this piece of art, then anybody who uses it needs to have the same rights afforded to them. So your red flag might go up that then OpenAI is then allowed to use that information to sell and make money off of. But OpenAI would then need to allow you to use their information to then go and sell and make money off of. So everybody down the chain is allowed to use the same things, but everybody beneath you also has to. So if I make a awesome stick figure meme that's worth $1 million and I sell it, then you're allowed to use that and copy it and change it, and you're allowed to also sell it. But everybody beneath you also has to be able to copy whatever you did and change it and also sell it. So yeah, I think that open-ended chain allows nobody to be able to hoard the information, even if it's just the next person using it, whether it's OpenAI or whether it's you. It's everybody down the chain has the same opportunity to use this information.
There are cases where open source projects still make money though, Austin. They're not, even if they are free to use. Let's pretend you're a business that uses PostgreSQL, right? It's an open source database project. But let's say you're this business that uses it and it's become so vital a part of your business that you oftentimes donate to the founding people of the open source software to basically maintain this. And, you rely on them for security vulnerability fixes, enhancements. And that's at least one of the avenues open source projects become profitable is it's a hobby turned into a vital piece of a lot of other businesses, and they will donate for you to keep up to date on it. I mean,
I understand
it's not
that,
a
but
ton of money.
the New York Times is not a hobby. Like, that's a business that needs people to subscribe to it and to click on their pages so they can sell ads. That's their entire revenue model. And so are they going to essentially be able to get enough revenue from AI companies using their information to offset all of that lost revenue?
Yeah, that's yet to be seen. Like, do you have enough donations coming in? I don't know. I'd love to see.
I don't think they're going to be getting donations. I don't think anyone's going to donate to the New York Times.
I guess it's a little side, but I want to see Wikipedia's balance sheet on how their costs, and how they always ask you to donate.
I'm an annual donor.
Is that public? Are you really?
It's one of the few things that I use regularly, and it's free. Like, it's something I care about. I don't give them a ton of money. I give them like $30 a year or something, but it's like there are very few things that I use annually that I actually get like a lot out of. And I'm like, why not? They're free. How many? Like, that's something that bugs me the most about the internet. Like, I use the internet less and less, I feel like, because of all the ads and annoying shit that I have to go through, jump through hoops to like access things. Wikipedia is free. I'm willing to throw them $30 a year. It's nothing.
Fair point.
So what is New York Times claiming? That they read all of our articles and are using them to do what with them? Like, where's the copyright infringement in their minds?
Well, I think early on you could just ask. They probably changed this now, but you could just ask ChatGPT to literally tell you like a New York Times article that's behind a paywall. Like, you could give it a link and it would tell, and you didn't have to be subscribed, and it would tell you what's in that.
Yeah, I mean,
and
yeah,
so that was like the early days, but that's like
totally copyright
infringement. Lawsuit.
Like, the fact that if you're not even using your AI to read it and like summarize it, that's totally copyright infringement. Just taking someone else's paid for content and literally just spitting it back out. That's free. Well, not free. You're paying a different source for it. That's definitely copyright infringement. But I think if it's reading the article and summarizing it and then giving it to you, I'm not sure how that's any different than someone else who subscribes to the New York Times and then tells you what I do this all the time. I read my articles from the BBC, the one that we're going to talk about later, and I'll summarize it for you, but that's not copyright.
I think there's this like fair use test, and one of the key components to it is if you're doing it for a profit. So is it a commercial activity? And so like the history fair example, like from the beginning, that's fine because it's just for research. You're not making any money off of history fair. But when you're doing something where you now have an enterprise that's summarizing the information, that's where we get into the gray area here.
What about then like Spark Notes or EasyBib? How are they not copywriting content? Like, I have to pay them.
I'm guessing that SparkNotes is probably like some sort of nonprofit.
SparkNotes was the devil.
Like some of that was like you get a little bit of it and then you have to pay to like receive the rest of it. So I don't know how that wouldn't be.
Yeah. SparkNotes receives revenue from it does not charge users. SparkNotes receives revenue.
Isn't that the same thing?
Probably something.
Well, I guess they would be along the same lines of Google then, where they're giving you summaries of stuff and they're not making money off the summaries, but they're making money off the advertisements. No, I think this would be, this would be a very interesting conversation to have with like a copyright lawyer and to see their opinion on it, because they would know the more intricacies of how copyright is actually litigated, because I don't really understand. I've always thought copyright was always kind of silly. Like, I understood the purpose of copywriting, but I feel like people have always pushed the limits. Like, have you ever heard of that interview with Ed Sheeran? Not interview. Ed Sheeran got sued by some like family members of they basically own the estate of some singer that has a song from like the 60s, and they sued Ed Sheeran because they're like, you stole our father or grandfather's song and you used it to make your own song. And basically he spent like multiple years of litigation proving that just because you use similar chords does not mean I stole your song. It's like those are the building blocks of music. Like he said something like, we went back to songs from like the 18th century and found the same chord progression. It's like, so really your dad was not the first one that used it. So how can you sue me if you're copying someone else? So that's where I've always been like, I've always been like,
Yes.
copywriting was always a slippery slope and a lot of that stuff. So it'd be very interesting to get a lawyer who's an expert in copywriting to give their perspective on that.
I think that Ed Sheeran case, though, led to the fact that melodies are copywritten. You can't copyright chords or structures of songs, but melodies are copyrighted. So
And I think he won at the end. Or maybe,
interesting.
I don't remember if he won or if he settled, but I think he won.
So it was the heirs of Ed Townsend who co-wrote "Let's Get It On" with Marvin Gaye. And the allegation was that Thinking Out Loud, Ed Sheeran's song, copied the chord progression, rhythm, and feel of Let's Get It On. In May 2023, a New York jury found in favor of Sheeran, ruling he did not infringe on the copyright. The jury concluded that the shared elements were common musical building blocks that can't be copyrighted.
Yeah, so
There
just
you
to
go.
my point, I've always felt like it's a slippery slope with copywriting and how you prove that someone copied or not. Maybe with AI, it's easier because you can point to the code. I don't really know if you can. After it gets plugged in their system and into their algorithm, can they point to like where that source came from? I don't know. I assume they can.
And that actually brings up, as far as copyleft is concerned, they're not actually redistributing your information. So the copyleft wouldn't apply to however they use that training information. So similarly, as it's hard to like trace the copyright infringement, it's also hard to apply any copyleft restrictions on data. So it kind of goes both ways in the fuzziness as far as tracking where information comes from and how it ultimately is used.
All right. Well, shall I move us on to our next topic?
Yeah, this one we can make kind of short. This is more of just a PSA to the United States, all the citizens who live here. My article was talking about the semiconductor industry. It's specifically its reliance on the small island nation of Taiwan. A lot of Americans don't really understand how important this country is. A little history background. It was where I guess you could say, democratic forces of China fled to during the Chinese Civil War way back in the late 80s and early 50s. I might have that a little off, but basically all the democratic folks who weren't supporting communism fled to this tiny island called Taiwan, and they've kind of lived there since. Taiwan is a country that supports democratic values more than the country of China. And they also happen to have the largest semiconductor manufacturing, that's really important, manufacturing in the whole world. Specifically, at least not amount, but in technology. And what I mean by that is, according to this article, 92% of the world's logic chips, which is basically the chips that go into AI, the chips that go into computers, like gaming computers, the advanced chips basically are made in Taiwan %. You talk about a monopoly, that is a damn near monopoly. And the only other country that goes above 1% is South Korea. So you could say 99% of the world's logic chips are made in the eastern part of Asia. Now, why is this article relevant? You start looking at geopolitical tension in the world, and between the United States, who is our biggest rival, obviously, is China. So when people talk about, are we scared about what China's going to do with their economy? Are we scared with their military power? It really doesn't matter what they do if they take Taiwan. If Taiwan becomes a country that is not nice to the United States, and that can be through economic policies or, that's actually the main one, it is going to be a major problem. If you cut off that semiconductor business, you are going to see a chain reaction that will probably impact every single country or every single citizen in this country, just because of the sheer monopoly that that country has on these logic chips. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of everyone. And it's kind of going back to what Austin was saying when we were talking about Trump's tariffs and how we want to bring back manufacturing to the United States, maybe not necessarily shoes, but on things like semiconductors. I cannot agree more. It's something that we offshored back. I was reading this book. I've talked about it before, Chip Wars, and we offshored all of chip manufacturing in the 80s and 90s to Taiwan, and we never got it back because what did the US do really well? We designed chips really well. We are the ones that come up with, how can you get more silicon on a smaller surface? Like, we're very good at that, but we don't make the damn things. We outsource all of the production, all the manufacturing to Taiwan. So I think it's a wake-up call to us all. Highly suggest books. I cannot say that enough, but it's amazing how one little country, if it were to just sink into the ocean, every single person, even if you don't use cell phones or you don't use any technology, is going to be impacted in a way that we probably don't even understand. So it's kind of cool. I just wanted to get you guys' take on that. We do need to get manufacturing back, but I think I really don't care about any other manufacturing but chip manufacturing. It's pretty crazy.
What's the go? I can go. Let me move up.
You're quiet, but go.
Yep.
Sit up.
I have a couple questions. So we don't do any chip manufacturing in the U.S. currently. Do you know?
Not any of any substantial value in logic chips. So
and what are the
fancy
major
chips that do a lot of
elements needed
computations
to produce a chip?
It's fabs. So you think of fabricators. So it's the equipment and the skill sets that go into these giant manufacturing facilities. And typically it's cost. At least when the book was written, it was costing $20 billion just to get one of these facilities up. And that's before you even really start honing down on the factory lines and getting production to higher efficiencies. So those are the two main things that kind of go into chip manufacturing, at least from my limited knowledge.
In the U.S., we are pumping out battery factories right now. We're pumping up, what do they call them? Server storage facility. Yeah, it's just data warehouses. So
data warehouses and data centers.
We still are manufacturing certain things in this country, and they're mostly technology-based, so these new ones. So you think that the need for, I guess the government doesn't feel like manufacturing chips is a big concern, or I feel like we would be doing it, right?
It wasn't up until the first Trump administration. So that's when they started realizing how much outsourcing had really, it was outsourcing, but in the name of globalization, right? You have that buzzword again of, it's a good thing that, that Taiwan is producing this, it's bringing them wealth and, democratic values, and our companies don't have to pursue the expense of fabricating their own chips. Well, yeah, that's coming back to bite us in the ass. But in the first Trump administration started making it a focus, and then Biden late in his administration did the CHIPS Act. I don't know if you guys kind of remember that. But that was essentially, you can boil that down to government subsidies for Intel, I think mainly, to start building these large manufacturing plants in the United States. Unfortunately, we're just 2 decades behind what China and Taiwan have been doing since they started manufacturing chips. Their government subsidized those industries ever since their inception. So it's just one of those things, we're late to the game, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take us to get up there.
I mean, you could view that as a positive, right? That we weren't the first mover in the manufacture of chips. And so as a result, all these other countries have a stranglehold on the manufacture. But the processes have changed drastically. And now we can, I'm certain, build, a 1 nanometer chip manufacture plant far cheaper than whoever, Taiwan was the first time that they did it. So I would imagine that we could at least leapfrog a giant portion of the head start that other companies had, just because we know how to design them, and the kinds of machines, like we've seen them, we've been on the factory floors. I'm sure we have access to that. So it seems like we would be able to get that up and started relatively quickly. I don't know. Do you think that maybe like do they have a bigger advantage than I'm making it seem?
I think you always think of the United States as a country that can, we have the money, we have the technology, we can just spin it up quickly. The problem is you are chasing another country that's been doing it since the 80s and just been iterating on their process and making it better, versus the United States, who has not been doing this since the 80s. So yes, we probably could throw down the money and start it up, but you can only build stuff so quickly, right? And how fast can you make up 3 decades worth of iterations and construction, and even for the country like the United States, right? And that's if you get a unified government behind it. You could start your construction, first year of Trump, and then your next administration doesn't support you at all. That's the crazy part about the United States. So I don't think it's as easy as we all like to think it is.
That's a good point about like the knowledge, like the generational knowledge of the actual labor force. Like you might be able to hire some people who like theoretically know how to do it, or maybe worked in the industry, but they've got like 50 years of people who know this stuff and know the whole industry, versus all of our labor who would be new to the industry, not know the pitfalls, and still probably have some hurdles.
Intel, who's been historically bad at seizing on any opportunity, so it's kind of scary. There's not a torchbearer in this country that says, we're going to be the next chip people, right? We're relying on Intel. That's what the CHIPS Act kind of did. So we'll see if Intel can actually succeed this time.
I think there's been some good investment announcements, like Taiwan Semi is building
they have an Arizona plant
stuff in Arizona. They're investing like a lot, $200 billion or something like that. And then NVIDIA is obviously investing a lot. So I think that's like why you're seeing the pressure now of trying to keep NVIDIA, like make sure NVIDIA, like it's great that NVIDIA is an American company.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to continue to incentivize that, and for them to be America first and to build here, so that we capture the benefit of, at least we're the first to capture the benefit of all of that innovation.
Yeah, the design still comes from the United States. So that's something we can hang our hats on, is that the United States is the world leading in chip design still. So, China's not going to be able to design the next generation AI learning chip. It's coming from the United States. So that is something that we can at least sleep a little easier.
But can they copy it? Like they get the chip right after?
Copy a design that hasn't been made yet. I mean, yes, maybe right after,
a year behind. Yeah.
They'd be a year behind, but then what do? They have to outsource the manufacturing to Taiwan. Like it's insane. Every country's reliance on this tiny island nation. It's crazy.
And why is that? Was it materials access, or just a couple of companies that ended up getting
first
a global?
Mover. It's all first mover. Taiwan was the place in the 80s to offshore your industry. So then Taiwan, hugs it, says, this is us, government fully on board. China was still kind of locked down a little bit, so China was kind of not part of the map. So everything Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan. It's just always been that. Why would a company in the United States try to manufacture their own chips when outsourcing their designs, again, higher margin, outsource the designs to Taiwan to then make the chips, so you don't have to build your own facility, which is insanely expensive to start, and then insanely expensive to retool every year when a new design comes out. Because the retooling, I think I haven't brought up yet, is a crazy expense. Imagine those machines that you've worked on, but now you have to make multi-million-dollar repair or retooling efforts. It's just
what I'm hearing is if you're gonna have a kid, tell them to go into engineering of chips, because you can have a job forever.
Honestly, I don't know what engineering of chip. I mean, chip design is. I have no idea what it entails. We need Mr. Connor Fuda on the call. I think he might be able to do some electrical engineering, talk to us. But
this sounds a little similar to like during COVID, where we were having troubles getting access to medications and vaccines and things. And they were talking about how it's a problem that we don't make any of the raw products within the United States. And we're going to have to try and move things back in-house because of incidents like this. And Taiwan sounds like well, and that's one of the major reasons, right? Or if not the major reason why U.S. defends Taiwan as a democratic island. It's pretty much the only reason.
I think it honestly
they can say
is
it's
the
because we want
largest
the world to
reason
be
is the chip
democratic, but
industry.
it's really
Yeah.
because we want them to keep selling us their chips and making our chips for us. And they know the importance of it. So that has to be where we want NVIDIA and all these other companies to start making products within the United States.
AMD used to fabricate in the U.S. They were one of the last major chip companies to still make their chips in the U.S., but then came too expensive and they outsourced it to Taiwan, of all places. So just kind of a crazy dependence we got going.
We've got a question if you guys are ready to move on.
Let's do it.
All right, so I'm just thinking, like, all this chip talk and AI talk, at what point, if ever, is an option, maybe you don't think we'll ever get to this point, do you think we'll biologically start to turn inwards in our development and start to be more concerned about, like, mental capacity and, like, understanding and usage of our own brains, like really developing our biology in order to compete? I wonder if we'll ever get to that point.
You know my stance on putting
You're gonna
chips
have
in
to
my
give an
body.
example. You mean like digitizing ourselves?
No. It's using your brain more efficiently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, becoming
Right.
more competitive, like, as a species, and, like, you know, maybe valuing more time, like really understanding and controlling your thoughts, and, like, being able to, like, think deeper and have, like, really strong memories. Like, I think our brains are capable of a lot of this stuff, but there's almost zero focus on the development of it.
And it's
Like-
there's almost a rot of it,
Yeah,
too.
totally.
With, like you were talking about, looking the stuff up. So
Mm-hmm.
it's an interesting concept, the biological advancements versus the
I saw-
technological advancements.
Ship
No one
sailed.
talks about that.
It's not happening.
Neuralink a little bit.
It's not until we can become one with the machine. There's going to be no incentive. You have no incentive to go learn your algebra better than you knew it last year, or to study the Bible more, or I'm going a lot to Christianity, or to read whatever. Right? Like, it's over. The computer is stronger now than we are, and so the people who are going to win in the world are the people who embrace and use the technology. And it's happening a little bit right now. It's happened for a long time, slowly. But what do they say? Things happen slowly and then all at once, or something like that, right? Slowly, there's all the advancements, right? First, the calculator comes out, then the computer with Excel, and then you got a SaaS product, and then you got the complete internet out, and then you got Wikipedia, and now you have ChatGPT, and it's going quickly. I think right now, maybe I'm just like too enveloped in this, but people are going to get left behind, and it's going to be really clear when you get to the point where we start to have wearable, like, AR infused features, whether it's something that's wearable, where now I'm just always have all the information that I want. There's something really cool I saw. I don't know if it's that cool, but Google is now, for Gemini on Samsung phones, and probably, I think, maybe every Android, but they're enabling now live AI usage. Like, it is watching your phone screen, and the AI is live interpreting your phone screen.
That came sooner than I expected. I've been sort of waiting for something like that.
And they're doing it with video too. So you can turn your camera on, and AI is live interpreting the world around you. Like, that's the unlock to AR.
I'm not surprised. I think though, I can see an inflection point where, if we're able to realize that the capacity of the human brain is in fact greater than the capacity of a human brain linked with digital, like, if for some reason a digital experience is somehow limiting to, like, the human brain's capacity, like Justin was saying, there's a rot, which I think that there is maybe an argument for that, with, like, reliance on digital sort of erodes at the brain's power. So I think it's really an argument of capacity. And while right now we are woefully equipped to compete with AI and with technology generally, that may just be from generations of neglect and not having like our entire society focused on like development of the brain and our capabilities.
I don't know if I buy the rot argument. Sorry, I know I'm cutting you off again, Matthew, but I don't know if I buy the rot argument, because I think that my brain has much more information, or let's say the average brain today, I think knows more and is more powerful than a brain 500 years ago.
But
Because
would you say on memory, on your own personal memory, you think you're more powerful than 500 years ago?
I mean, I don't know about personal memory, but I think like knowledge of the world and just knowledge in general.
I mean, I would push back at that. Like maybe you're weighing the knowledge that you have and the depth of the knowledge as more than the simple knowledge that somebody 500 years ago had. Like maybe their kind of knowledge was like the grass grew a quarter inch today or something, but like maybe the total amount of knowledge that you both have is roughly the same. And so you haven't actually grown in capacity. You've just outsourced a lot of that other stuff so that you can instantly dive to the deepest depths
on
that
Austin's
the
side
internet
here.
has.
I think,
and that's a bad thing,
that we just use our brains differently. I had this conversation with Fuda a couple of years ago because we were talking about how people used to know how to. It felt like people used to know how to do more things, right? Like maybe you had a dad that was super like Mr. Fix-It, and he knew how to do all these different things, and that just didn't get passed on to you because we grew up in a different world where most of that stuff was automated. And it's like, but now when we use technology, our parents don't really know how to use it, right? Like we just use it as a different tool. And so I think as people grow, as generations go on, we're just taking this technology and using it as a tool differently, but I don't think our brains stop working. We just have to use them in different ways. Like we might not need them to store as much random knowledge about Shakespeare that you learn in 7th grade because we've talked about this with writing papers. Are people going to like stop writing papers because like they could just tell an AI to do it? Maybe they will. And then they'll have to like start teaching something else because they're like, at the end of the day, what's the value in it? And that's maybe more of a philosophical question. Are you going to school to make yourself a better person? Or are you going to school to get a job?
There's no class or test on how to use a hand plow anymore.
Correct, but there's problem solving. Let's say any problem solving problem, but you don't have your phone with you. All right, could a mind of, let's say 100 years ago, figure out the problem easier than a mind right now? I think the answer is probably yes.
Depends on the problem.
Because people rely on their phone.
If the problem is, why is my computer
they won't
not
know
working?
how to do it.
I doubt.
And also, I push back on that, saying, why would I not have my phone? I always have my phone.
Amen.
Okay. But you won't get a
I'm just
chip.
saying realistically,
you are the most confusing
any
person.
problem that I'm doing to get paid, I'm going to have a tool like my cell phone to use. Anything I'm going to use as like something to sustain my income, I can use tools for.
I guess so. I think what you guys need is a reason to not collaborate with the technology. Like it's really great, but I guess my question would be, at what point are you no longer needed? What are you bringing to the table? And I think if the answer to that question is that you're not needed any longer, then what's your purpose for existing? Kind of, yeah. I mean, if you need a reason to like be dependent on it, I don't know. I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but
I mean, this is AGI. Like this is the fear of.
Yeah, I guess you could jump straight there. And so, at what point do you revert back to? I mean, I like your point. Like, if my computer breaks, a guy 500 years ago wouldn't know how to fix that. Nice.
That never works in the first try.
Exactly.
Computer chips can't catch that fly for you, man.
That's what we'll be doing all day. We'll be sitting around while all of our bots
that bot will do it for
us,
me,
and we'll be
as if I'd raised my own hands.
Flies. That's true. With extreme precision.
I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting question. I don't know if I'm super strong either way, because I'm also like super excited about technology and like the ability to use it as a tool to like just catapult ourselves. I think we've got real chance there. But another part of me is like ability to communicate or to understand yourself in a way that you're pursuing meaningful things, and ability to remember things to a level that, you know, you can provide more meaning to the world. Just, I think there's a lot of things that the human brain is undervalued for right now. And I think it's been neglected and those values have been neglected, but I think that they're competitive things. So I think those things are separate and more powerful than like the chip side of our brains.
You could probably argue, I guess this might be a reach there, Sam, but the things you don't know about that maybe the biological brain is better at that is kind of the uncanny valley argument, right? When people look at a robot and you can tell it's a robot, that's something only the human brain can do, right? That's not something an AI can reasonably do. I wonder if that's kind of loosely connected to your idea of like, there's something about the human brain that is still valuable, right? There's something about the human brain that is not going to be able to, at least at this moment, be copied by an AI 100%. Most people can tell when they're talking to a robot. We're not there yet. Maybe we haven't figured, AI hasn't figured out how to do that yet. Maybe it never will. But, you know, I'm like 99.9% sure Matthew right now is not a robot. But I guess I'm not going to say with 100%.
Always has that phone with him. You know,
well, Sam's like 85% sure this is not a simulation.
How many people need to tell me that they aren't sure if I'm a robot or not before I should like?
Well, to be fair, I haven't seen you myself in person since like Justin's wedding.
I've given my DNA to people.
Hey, you're handing out your DNA to 23andMe.
Supposedly, we haven't seen the DNA, so we're taking.
Suppose he has DNA at all.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think we're getting pretty existential with this. I don't think in our lifetime that will ever matter. I don't think we'll ever get to a place where we're trying to like truly determine the value of human beings and society. Technology's moving quickly, not that fast though. That's maybe just my opinion.
I need to think of like a problem-solving problem that a guy 200 years could do and a guy from now could do. They're on the same playing field.
This is like comparing LeBron James and Michael Jordan. You're never going to get a right answer.
I think like closing thought on it is and it is very existential, but I think it's the self that is the most important thing to me. Like, are we at risk of losing the self by outsourcing so much to technology? And I think that's the thing that you would be concerned about. Like, that's what can't be taken away from an AI model is like, you still have a sense of self. And so what does that mean? And how much do we prioritize that in our society? I think there's a lot of power to be gained
also, there. I don't want to go too deep down, but I think that AI right now and for the foreseeable future is mostly going to be a tool and not just be something that replaces us. So don't you think that people will just find more interesting ways to use the tool to be, especially for like creatives? I think in the mindset of creatives, that's what kind of started this topic of like copyright and everything. We're mostly going with like creative aspect, I'd say. I feel like people are just going to find more ways to use the AI to make it their own, you know? Like when you plug in like, hey, make me a picture of Bowser from Mario, but put him in a cowboy outfit. I don't know, something crazy. And then, but they're going to find ways, you know, something that you couldn't do yourself within like 30 seconds, but AI can do it in 10 seconds,
no AI
right?
would think of.
People are going to find creative ways to make that their own, like, and then monetize that or just like create their own art, right? Like, cause I could type that in and get a very similar thing to you doing it, but I think they'll find their own ways to be like, okay, if someone else can just do it the same way as me, I'm not unique. So I'm going to find a different way to do this. As AI develops and people play with it more, I think that's what we're going to find.
I mean, 100 million%. That's exactly right. People will use this tool to build so much more, and that I don't even know where I'm going with that. But the thing that Justin, Replete, the tool that I've told you about, I don't know if you've used it. There is now a AI powered tool where you can create and write your own application without any code, just using language. I can tell this tool, I want to make an app that does X, Y, and Z, and it will write all the Python code for me, or write all the JavaScript. It'll put it out and it'll create a usable app.
Can you change it? Can you adjust it after it makes something, and then you'd be like, "This sucks. I need you to change this."
Yes, then you can tell it. Yeah, it'll.
But that's the thing. That's the scary thing, though. If you have a good idea, doesn't Replete own it?
No, you own the code. You own the. You can connect. You connect it to a GitHub repository, and you have all the source
But
code.
I wonder, like, if you came up with a multi-million-dollar app on via Replete, unless it says we will not specifically come after you for any revenue using our application, I have to believe that they have a stake in that. Then
It's a copyright issue again.
Don't think so.
I don't know. Microsoft Word can't claim my book that I wrote in Microsoft Word.
that's not even remotely related to them, like building all
Yeah,
the
get
code for
outta
your
here, Matt.
application.
Get out of
That-
here
I don't
with
know.
that.
App. They're not putting in the
They're
man
putting in
hours.
the
You
man
typed
hours
it
for
all
your
up. You did the
idea.
work.
You're
You're just using their app, their application to make it.
okay.
You're not even using. Well, they're not even typing. They're not even
Yeah.
typing it all up. OpenAI or Claude or
Is
one of
it
these other LLMs is doing all of the work.
You have to pay for it,
They're
right?
just a front end for the LLM. You pay
It's a
Replete.
custom
Yeah.
GPT, is what you're saying?
No, they're using. They're plugging into a GPT, and there's so like you're just like the way that you communicate with ChatGPT, it will write code for you. So they have that on one side essentially, and on the other side, it's live taking that code and building and interpreting it and putting it into
It's a
what it
emulator
looks like.
or whatever you call it. Cool.
Yeah, sure. I don't know what an emulator is, but yeah.
It like runs the code, like gives you a live
Pops
view
never
of it,
did
right?
any Pokemon growing
He
up.
never had.
Look at him.
When you create a code or app on Replete, you retain ownership of your intellectual
Yeah.
property.
I mean, if they do that, then props to them. Then everybody should be trying to do that.
Well, that would be insane if they didn't. It's not actually that different than if you wrote a book on Microsoft Word.
Well, that's what companies are having these. That's why some companies don't use AIs. They're scared that the IP is actually part of whatever AI engine you're using. And now
Well,
they
yeah,
can,
anything that you put in is going to go back into it. Like any question I'm asking
Yeah.
that through the Claude like AI that I'm communicating with, it's feeding back into that as I'm talking to it. So yes, it has all of like the source code being fed back in.
So in theory, if they get hacked, they have your source code. I mean, that's the risk you're taking by using these apps.
That's the risk you're taking by using any cloud service provider.
Correct. It's a risk.
So should we not do that anymore?
Can't be ignored. I'm just saying it's a risk.
You want to go back to pen and paper?
Yes.
Should we get our pigeons out and communicate that way?
I'm just educating our
Yes.
listener, Austin.
Okay, can I go next on my article?
Yes, please. This is
Okay,
a fun
so-
article. I think I just saw you.
Yeah,
drop
so
it
this
in.
is a buy now, pay later plan for companies like Zip and buy now,
Klarna.
pay and Klarna.
Oh,
Yeah, so-
DoorDash.
And DoorDash. So basically, you can use these companies to buy a Chipotle burrito and pay over 4 easy installments over 4 months. The buy now, pay later plans are expanding rapidly beyond big purchases to include small everyday items at fast food grocers. This trend comes with hidden risks for consumers, though. So the key concerns are it encourages overspending. If you don't have any money in your bank account, things can feel cheaper. You can finance your Chipotle burrito. There's also a lack of regulation, whereas you need a lot of documentation for things like loans or mortgages. There's not a lot of transparency around the kinds of fees or interests or how you handle disputes with buy now, pay later programs. There's also issues with debt accumulation. So if people have multiple buy now, pay later plans at once, you can rapidly increase the amount of debt that you have as a consumer. And then there's just credit risks where if you are now extended credit for a burrito, you can have penalties or it'll lead to collection activity or it'll hit your credit score all because of like a Chipotle burrito that you forgot to pay off from a couple of months ago. And I think one other small issue is data privacy concerns where you're now giving them like financial information in exchange for a burrito. So I think the scary part, though, for me is the derivatives market of these loans, because whoever writes these loans, they aren't holding these on their books. They repackage them and sell them to debt markets. There's a whole market for debt. And so somebody out there is buying like repackaged debt of like college kids' Chipotle burritos as an investment. And they will purchase it because some portion of those will not go paid and then there will be interest penalties. And so there's a whole market for like the derivatives of these Chipotle burritos, which is, to me, sounds like the very tip of a massive bubble. You know, that's sort of what we did with CMBS's in the housing crisis in 2008. Like, it's the same games that the financial industry pays. But it's just kind of wild to me that it's occurring at the consumer level of like burritos and
Standing
groceries.
alone for a burrito. That's a great line.
So I guess that I mean, I completely I think it's consumer indebtedness. We're also seeing things like this. So that's not a great sign for the health of the consumer. But what would you say if I played the other side, that you could go get a Chase credit card and buy your burrito on the credit card and not pay that off, and you're paying 30% interest on the credit card or 30% interest on your burrito from a firm or whoever you did this deal with for BNPL?
I think that's that's like the regulatory issue. Like the buy now, pay later programs are different than the approval process you would need to go get a Chase credit card. And so the rules revolving how it's collected or what rights the consumer has as entering into that agreement are pretty fuzzy and can be unfavorable and predatory. So I think that's probably the main thing, is just regulatory. It's like anybody could get this even if they had zero credit and really should not be getting loans.
This just needs to be regulated heavily. You don't want to be, it doesn't matter what you think about banks, at least they're still highly regulated. Like these, I'm sure this isn't the first time this sort of idea has popped up, and I'm sure it's either been shot down or these industries or ideas have been regulated, because it's just, you're incentivizing people to go into debt. And because these companies are not financial institutions, they don't really give a hoot about if the people are going to pay them off or not. I am curious how they do handle indebtedness. Like, do they just send it to a collections agency if you never pay your bill? Like, is it like what a medical provider would do if you never paid your medical bill? They'll just threaten to send it to collections, and then maybe someone will eventually come after you, but it's going to hit your credit score. I don't think people who are taking out a loan for a burrito really give a shit about their credit score. I'll be honest. Like, if you're in that dire straits for food, you're taking out a loan for food, you don't care. Your credit score is already 0 or negative, whatever. I do love that you just compared loans of burritos to the 2008 financial crisis. That instead of a housing bubble, we're going to have a burrito bubble.
We're in a burrito bubble.
Shout out to the movie The Big Short. Like, that is a great movie.
Yeah,
I
book's even better.
watched that a couple times. Is the book
Michael
better?
Lewis. Michael Lewis. Plug in Michael Lewis. I'm plugging Michael Lewis. Great author. Michael Lewis, Austin's favorite movie, The Blind Side.
Know what else
He wrote Moneyball.
No.
Yes.
Those are good.
He wrote
stories.
all these things. Is he an expert in anything?
Justin's overwhelmed.
Is he an expert in anything? No, he's an author. That's obviously
Thank you
what
for
an author
defining
is.
an author.
If you can't do right.
But he did The Big Short. Yes, he did The Big Short. He did Blind Side. He wrote He wrote Moneyball. There's, I think, what's the other one? I haven't read it. Liars something. I don't know. He's a great author. He just finds kind of interesting. I think he used to work in like the financial sector, and then he kind of hated it, and then he wanted to start writing because he always liked writing. And I think he might have gone to journalism or something. I don't know for sure, but very interesting guy. Finds interesting topics, so I would highly suggest any Michael Lewis books.
What was the first thing that did buy now, pay later? Was that Amazon? Or there?
A lot of people
Well,
have done it.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been like rent-a-centers around for a while.
So how is this new necessarily? Is it because they're just allowing it on daily purchases now?
I think it just became a lot easier through like fintech. It became popularized because now you can do it on an app so easily.
I will be curious to know the usage numbers. Now, I don't know if they'll do that publicly, how many people are actually taking advantage of this.
Well, there's huge. I mean, these companies are massive. Affirm has been public for a while. Klarna's going public. Like, these are not small companies that, like, they've been around for a while. It's just getting a lot of publicity right now because of
I don't know anything about this. Just going up front.
They're the ones who so if I'm Chipotle, I have a partnership with Klarna, let's say, who is you then go to Klarna or I go to Klarna as Chipotle and I set up an agreement with them to offer buy now, pay later. So then I'm basically, Klarna pays me, Chipotle, for your burrito. And then you need to pay Klarna back in 4 easy interest-free installments over X amount of months. And if you don't do that, then we charge you 30% interest.
They're always the option, Matt, like at the end of checkout, pay now, credit card,
So they
or pay with
Or
Klarna.
4 easy installments.
so they are
Yeah, 4 easy. They're the
a
option.
loans company
The other option.
or a financial institution.
Yeah, they're a credit.
Okay.
They're a credit
So they're a financial
company.
institution.
They're
on
giving
credit.
you credit essentially.
Which goes back to, I think, our first podcast. Maybe it was our episode 0 unreleased, where I was saying that inflation is the enemy of all humanity. And I think that's in the credit world. Like, the inflation is because we have a fiat currency that's based on credit, like with fewer and fewer assets and value to back up the credit that we've overextended. And I think my ultimate question to you guys then is, based on that, where on the burrito bubble are we?
You did not just make this right now, right?
I don't appreciate that the arrows go in both directions if
Yeah.
time is on a right scale.
I think it's like more of
If you
a
believe
this
time's
situation,
linear.
like between these periods.
Or
Time is parabolic.
we
to
could have
me.
a whole podcast on that discussion. Everybody
Man,
watch
Great
Interstellar.
movie.
Personally, I think we are right on the tip here of the burrito bubble.
Do you think the United States is going to start printing money like it's Argentina, and we're just going to get to the superinflation?
If we can't
Well, with
extend this section
the fall,
further,
the fall into another
We
bubble,
might- we
like
might
you were
try to do
saying,
that.
where they're basically like CDOs that they're packaging into these tranches that then get sold to these debt companies. Like, you'd have to.
Mhm.
I think, hopefully, we've learned from the 2008 crisis, and like Moody, what was it? Mooney, or what's their name? Yes, Moody's and
Moody's.
the ratings
Their credit-
agencies. Hopefully, they'd see that.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, there was some regulation and oversight that's been added to the credit agencies, so that they have to check a little more stringently if like they're selling derivatives or selling financial vehicles that are full of like legitimate burritos. Like, at least when it came to a home, like that's a couple, the debt was like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Burrito was like $8.
burrito
Like,
doesn't
they had
even
a bunch of
exist.
tiny little debts of like $8, $12, $15 here and there. Like, who would ever buy that debt?
I mean, the concerning part is that we've probably already done everything more legitimate than burritos. If we're scraping the bottom of the barrel of financing burritos, then it's probably because we've already financed everything else.
To be honest though, I'm not honestly opposed. Are you guys? I mean, how opposed are you guys to pay now or buy now, pay later? I'm honestly not super opposed to it. I think there needs to be regulation in place so that we don't spiral out of control, but I don't see any problem. I mean, the burrito sounds silly because it's like $8. You should be able to.
But like, where does this help you? Like, in what scenario are you in a spot where 4 easy payments of $2
So should there
is
be a
what
minimum?
you need
Is
to
what we're
better
saying?
your life?
Minimum or like a minimum price to be able to get a loan?
It's just like,
Yeah, like what if it's a college student that needs a laptop for their freshman year of college and they don't have one? It's going to be $800. It's like 4 payments of $200.
that
So
ground.
do we
that's
need to
been around
implement a
longer than
minimum?
this.
Is that part of the regulation then? Is that what I'm hearing? Like, it's got to at least be $100? Everybody's purchasing power is different. Is it really my right to tell you that?
Maybe
I don't
that's the
know.
answer.
It's not really my responsibility to tell you how to spend your money.
Well, it's okay. That's a different argument, because this is the Austin argument. Austin always makes these things. Just give people tools. He's like, give people tools. They can choose not to use them or not. You know, who really gives a shit about morality? Just, you don't use them if you don't need it. Like, that's Austin's take every single time.
Justin has now argued for, in just this episode, he wants us to lock down our internet to basically become the Chinese internet and regulate all of it so that we don't.
When did I make that play?
At the beginning, we were talking about AI models. You were saying
Or are
that
you
we
trying
should
to
just
discredit him?
use. Yeah, we should just use our internal
I
AI
did not
models.
say that.
That was number one, and now you're saying that just because someone doesn't have as much money as you, they shouldn't be allowed to buy a burrito.
Twists of words, but okay. I'll play the other side, I guess. No, it's just like this tool just seems like the bad idea to someone in a situation where they think this is a good idea for a $8 burrito. And now you've said, hey, this is available to you. You already are not in a great spot. but you really need this burrito today. I can make it easier for you. It seems like putting poison in a poor man's drink of who's already suffering. I'm not saying poor man like poor people, but like this is not a good idea.
I would agree with that.
In my opinion, this is not a good idea.
It's definitely not a good thing for human beings. I don't think, like, if you're using it, like I said, if you're using it for $8, man, you are like really struggling, because you should be able to pay $8 for anything. And that's just a bigger question of, we shouldn't have United States citizens that can't afford $8 meal.
Well, hold on. I'm going to push back on this.
Avenue.
I'm going to push back on this. I appreciate the take, and I agree with you both. But what about the consumer who is overly concerned about the time value of money, and they see a month-long payment of $8 is better than paying $8 now? And so I can certainly afford the burrito, but I would rather pay it later at 0% interest than now. And so is it
for
that person?
Are these 0% interest? Is that the case on these loans?
So you're flipping it.
I'm playing devil's advocate, but
They are.
Well, let's say, Matt, you just pay it off at the end of the month. Like, so it's in theory like a credit card, so you're not ever paying interest.
Do they have a max?
But why not just use a credit card at that
Do you have
point?
a max like you do with the credit card?
I guess that's the
So
counter-argument.
if you racked up $5,000, like usually that's a max on a credit card, like all you can spend.
Oh,
And if you go over, like
I
if
don't
you
know.
bought $5,000 worth of
$5,000
burritos in a
burritos.
month somehow, like, would they be like, sorry, no more burritos for you this month? You've hit your max.
how predatory would that be?
mm-hmm.
If, but then again, it's Sam's argument here. Like, let's say you're someone that, I don't know, you do catering and you force the installments for the $5,000, and now you're making, well, they don't really offer any bonuses for using their pay, I'd imagine. So there's really no incentive, Sam, if you are that individual.
You take your $5,000 and you invest it at 2%, just matching inflation, and then you pay back your $5,000 at the end of the month. You've discounted your purchase by 2% because you've been able to invest in that time period.
But is that the same as a credit card?
Yeah, so I think then the argument then is back to the regulatory concern, and is this predatory? Like, if you're going after people who are already unlikely to repay these loans, so that you can collect fees and high interest rates on it, then is it like it to me becomes more of a moral issue, and I think it's a moral issue and also a health issue of our overall economy. And should we be extending credit that deeply into our economy? I think that's probably an unhealthy little bit of juice that doesn't need to be there for our economy, and probably is also unhealthy for like the overall, like for the people who are actually using it. Although I think that there probably is a sector of people who are like, hell yeah, like this is 0% interest, I'm gonna pay it off. It's just, making it let me have my money in my pocket longer than in yours.
There's probably some apps that you can do some, or maybe there's a lack of an app that you can leverage to use these payments with to do what you're doing, Sam. Basically, you'd have to be really on top of this to get what you're pointing out.
Yeah, I mean, that's subjective. Like one penny to me might be worth it.
It's definitely predatory. It's just like credit cards, like we've been saying. It's like credit cards are great for banks because they can charge overdraft fees, or they can get you to pay later using interest, right? Like that's how they make their money. But if you really want to game the system and get like 20 credit cards, and so you can get like their bonus rewards and stuff, you can really game the system and you can like come out on top because you're smart about it. Yeah, like I got Pokemon or baseball cards, but it's credit cards, right? Like you can do it, but it's just like they know the majority, if not almost all the population, will not do that. So they're willing to take that risk because it just doesn't matter. Like there would be smart people, like you said, that could, like, if you're going to spend $5,000 on burritos in a month, instead invest that $5,000, buy your $5,000 of burritos. Hopefully you made a profit that month and you basically got them. Well, you wouldn't get them for free because you won't double your money, but you could hypothetically get a discount. You could get them for less. But I think they just know most people, like that doesn't matter to them because they're still getting their money at the end of the day. So it just like,
it also depends how long you can, like, if that burrito
that's a
over
huge
3
burrito.
months, you can make 3 easy payments. Now, it's not. It's a tiny burrito.
If it's got rice in it, you do not want to eat it. That's true.
I thought we were gonna make a joke about how do you repossess the burrito
Yeah,
after you
right?
don't pay for it.
Yeah, that's a good question. What asset is there actually to recover?
There's a whole new industry that people have to go up to the
Burrito
super poor folk
restructure.
and just
The
Jeez.
final point I wanted to make on it, though, is because you mentioned credit cards, I think it's been my suspicion for a while, and let me know if you guys agree, that credit cards, like a primary revenue driver, isn't just the fees that from people not paying. It's from the data of the transactions and from like where you're shopping and what you're buying. So really, they're more data brokers than anything that then they can like sell to Meyer so that they know what to give you deals on to come back or show you ads on Amazon, etc. So maybe there's another concern here for using buy now, pay later, just in terms of giving the financial industry more of your personal data and habits to be able to use that against you to extract more wealth from you.
Cat's out of the bag. Every story, that's my answer tonight.
Yeah.
It's all over. We have no privacy anymore.
Just
Give
accept
up.
it. Everybody just start
Matter.
becoming podcasters. It's the only way to get value.
I've got privacy.
The
I've got
data's
privacy in
all
my
out
brain. I've got
Trying to
privacy
save
in my
space.
brain.
It's just, we're not going to go backwards. We're not going to recover the
biology.
privacy that's been lost. We're not going to make technology go backwards. We're not going to re-onshore stuff that isn't profitable to
Not with that
produce or
attitude.
isn't lower cost to produce here versus somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think you're talking with way too many finalities. Like, though the path ahead looks clear and certain and strong, you can't predict the future. And
Austin's a globalist. Who would have
Yeah.
thought?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would throw a real wrench in it if World War III broke out. And
which, according to the burrito bubble,
Based on
that's one of
burrito
them.
bubbles.
Revolutions and wars.
yeah,
If we get this right, we're
Maybe.
gonna rub it in everybody's face.
Oh yeah, did we have some this week that we need to bring up that we prophesized? Last one we had.
There
It's
definitely
always a day
was.
or two later we send a text in the chat,
Let's
and
take
it's
a
something we
look.
talked about. We had one last time.
There definitely was
it
this
Elon
time.
Musk playing with spoons and forks in the White House?
No, we did not prophesize that. We
Yeah.
it
should
was
have.
the eggs. It was the eggs.
It was the eggs. That's right.
The egg prices have been plummeting. Right after Matthew
Yeah,
did his
that was that.
rant, egg prices are down like 50%.
Houses are so
Thank
expensive.
you, Matt. Hashtag. Thank
you can't
you,
live
Matt.
anywhere these days. See if that works.
Man. Yeah, hopefully that
Who's our sponsor this week?
will be good.
Zillow, you want a house? You want a really expensive one? Get on Zillow. Zillow will provide you with your very own pillow.
Wow, you should sell that to them.
It's that you get a complimentary
That's
pillow
a
if you
not a
order
bad-
through
Yeah.
Zillow. It's a pretty good deal.
You actually get one.
So check them out if you haven't heard of them. They're up and coming.
Something I've been dealing with at work is I've been going backwards, and then we got to get to the demo. But I've been going back to something that was done in 2017, like a certain definition of how a metric was created. And I'm having to now like explain why that is not working properly and like what we should do differently. But we're going back to 2017 and trying to decipher why on earth it was done the way it was done to begin with. And like none of the same people are in the same roles or at the company. So I'm like, think about the future 50 years from now or less, where every conversation and every spoken word within a company is recorded. And now you've got a complete database of literally every spoken word. So now 10 years after something happens, I can go and just type in or ask my AI agent for the company, why did they do this thing 5 years ago to make this? And then it'll say, oh, well, at that time, so-and-so was in charge and so did this, and this because of these reasons. And I was like, bang, that's why like every spoken word, like if you have a company, you should want every word that's spoken at the
Don't
company
you think the NSA
or
would
on a
love
video
that
call
idea
to be
too?
recorded. How awesome is that going to be? Oh, like every Teams call, force record. You force record every Teams call. You should put mics in all of the conference rooms to force record all of that. And then like we'll do it for our personal lives too, where we're just constantly like recording everything with our wearables.
Uh-oh.
We've been doing it. That's the thing. We've already been doing it
It's
forever.
gonna be so cool.
We've had cameras and phones in our pockets since like the late 90s.
This is why Edward Snowden is in Russia right now.
Been there, done that.
Anyway,
Crosses some privacy issues.
but like think about what it cost the company because something happened 6 years ago or 7 years ago or whatever. It's caused so many people to have to spend all their time figuring out why something happened, where immediate cost savings would have been just pay a little bit to store those spoken words back from 2017. And now we resolved that problem.
I think that's interesting, and my brain goes to the immutability of that data. Like if you record everything, what is your certainty that when you go to access it, it is the same as when it was recorded? And so then to me, it goes down to a more foundational technology of like blockchain or cryptocurrency or something similar that somehow like makes that data untouchable so that the truth is preserved in the recording of it. Because I think the situation we're in now is like it would be impossible to tell
with
10
in,
years
like,
from now whether
meetings,
something was real or not.
But I don't think you can
At the
just
highest-
record your employees working. That would kind of cross a line, I think. Go ahead, Justin.
No, I was going to ask Sam. From my understanding, blockchain is able to basically add the source of truth because every single transaction that has ever occurred on the blockchain is validated on every single new transaction that occurs, right? And it's basically
Essentially.
a running ledger since the dawn of Bitcoin.
So
Essentially.
with your idea,
Okay.
Austin, recording, would you then have the AI summarize that information? Because like just having it wouldn't necessarily be that good because you're like, how the fuck would I find it?
Yes. No, it would be able to go find it based on, it would create a vectorized database of every spoken word, and then I'm going to ask it a question. It's going to go find whatever is most similar to that question and give me the answer.
I'm intensely interested in that, seriously, personal reasons. And I've considered like rigging my home and my car with cameras and actually recording everything that I do in my life with the idea that there will eventually be a tool powerful enough to sort through that raw data so that I could then go and find any information that I've experienced. So I don't know about like company, like the profitability side of things, but personally, I'm like, yeah, I'm really interested in like being able to capture every bit of data and then use it personally. I don't want other people to have it though.
This is where like those wearable, like the pin, like the Humane was a company out, and like the pins that you're gonna like we could wear that would constantly be recording everything around us. Your biggest problem there is just like the people around you wanting to be recorded or not.
They're gonna
But
get canceled.
um,
Imagine every word you said.
now
I'm
cancellation's
probably on my
dead.
way to being
But that's
canceled, by
not
the way.
true.
Yeah.
You can't get canceled anymore.
Let's test it. No, I was actually listening
why
to
we're having
a
this
podcast. It
podcast.
really wasn't about AI, but there's an AI slant to it. It was about there's Pablo Torre, he's like a sports journalist, but he was interviewing a AI engineer who's like his old friend, and what's his name? The president of basketball operations for the Sixers, Daryl Morey. And they were talking about like using data in sports and how that's changed how he manages a team and whatnot. And then it kind of got into this conversation about AI and like how he finds it valuable. And he was saying the stuff that like OpenAI does and Grok or whatever, that stuff's not inherent. That's not where the value of AI lies. Being able to like plug in, make this picture of Bowser in a cowboy hat. That stuff, it's just silly. Like, it's great, you can make a buck on it, but that's not where the power lies. He is saying that his thought was that when you can do what Sam was just saying, what you were just saying, and you can have your AI basically watch you and help it adjust your behavior to things that you want to improve yourself on. So you have your AI watch you throughout the day, and then at the end of the day, you'd be like, hey, like, I want to be more efficient at this. Could you watch for that? And then it watches you, and then at the end of the day, it'll say, you wasted time doing this, this, and this. Or I noticed after a month of watching you that, you forget to include this in your conversation with your coworker that you should really be bringing up. Or it tweaks those like personality traits or drops or things that you are trying to improve upon. And that's where he says that he finds like you can really use the power of AI. Like that's stuff that's really going to make a change. And I kind of agree with that. like, or in medicine and stuff. I think the AI, open AI stuff is really nice and cool, and like that's fun, and you can and they'll be able to use it for like businesses and stuff. But I think AI is really exciting because of that sort of thing.
I'm just scratching the surface. Once we can get our whole lives into data centers,
I'm gonna be long gone,
and then we can access that data.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
So sick. All right, let me do a close. All right, with that, we're gonna wrap it up. Thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget, you can always email us, symposium574@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We also want to make sure that you're sharing the episode with at least 4 or let's do 5 people. We need to get those viewership numbers up. Like our clips, subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X. We're everywhere.
And comment after you've shared with 5 so that we know that you're done.
Yes, just comment done, and then that will be the keyword that we know that you did it. All right. Well, boys, it's been a pleasure. With that, I'm going to get back to chatting with my friend ChatGPT, and I will see you guys next time.
Goodbye.
Say goodbye, Justin.
Bye.
Talking since the 5th grade, and somehow we've got more to say. Beat kicks in faster rhythm. Inflation's high, the game's too steep. Stream wars rage while we lose sleep. Big tech's wild, the Fed's a mess, but let's start a party, I guess. Symposium, where tangents thrive. Old friends talking, the takes collide. Symposium, no wrong or right, just good conversation deep into the night. Yeah, we're still talking.